Here are 3 steps that you can use when defining success for yourself during practice. Now, why is it so important to define success for yourself during practice? Well, it's going to be because you need to know what you're going to work on that day. It's about practicing with intent. Hey there. I'm Eli Strawman, a performance coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. Now, I work with a lot of athletes on helping them take their practice play and turn it into game time execution. And one of the key elements of that is making sure that they are having deliberate practices. And one of the things you want to make sure of is that your practices don't turn into performances in and of themselves, because practice is a time for you to work on things. Practice is a time for you to allow yourself to make mistakes. But practice cannot be the time where you're wanting to perform perfectly, because that's when you're never actually giving yourself the opportunity to grow and improve so that you can have those really great performances come game time. Now, to help yourself not have such a performing mindset during practice, you need to know what you're working on that day. And that's where defining success for yourself for practice comes into play. So step number 1 is you want to create a clear vision for practice. This vision is going to be what you're wanting to work on that day. Now, something that can really help with this is keeping track throughout the weeks and throughout the season of the elements of your game that you want to keep working on, or better known as the weaknesses of your game. Now, with athletes that I work with in one-on-one coaching, which, by the way, if you are interested in learning more about one-on-one mental performance coaching, I put a link to that in the description below. Those athletes always use a performance evaluation system. Now, this performance evaluation system allows them to look back over their practices and games and think about, the things they're doing well, and think about what they want to work on. And when they think about what they want to work on and really identify those areas, those then become what they want to improve for practice, either the next day or the next week, especially if we're coming off of a game. Now, when you know what you're wanting to work on that day for practice, so you have that vision for yourself, already right there, you're giving yourself more intent and more focus for that practice than you would if you're just saying, I want to have a good practice. Now, how can you do this if coach, for example, is telling you what you want to work on that day? Well, having a vision for practice and knowing what you're wanting to work on so that you can practice with intent, it honestly doesn't have as much to do with the specific drills and the specific things you do during practice as it might seem. Because what we're talking about is on a level of intent, like I've said a second ago, right? It's the intent of what you're wanting to focus on that day. An example is a volleyball player who wants to work on reads off of serves. So it doesn't matter what coach has in terms of drills for that day. She knows that what she's working on whenever she has the opportunity is reading the ball a little bit earlier when it's hit on a serve, because that's what she wants to be improving that day. That's her vision for practice that day. So step number 1 is you want to make sure you have a vision and a clear idea of what you're wanting to work on for practice. Step number 2 is you want to set objectives for practice. So once you have your clear vision, these objectives are going to be the more actionable elements that you want to make sure that you're focusing on for practice to achieve that vision so you can start really having successful practices. Now, for your objectives, once again, these don't have as much to do with what coach is giving you in terms of drills. These have more to do with the controllable parts of your game. Another example would be if you're a baseball player. So let's say you're a baseball player and what you're wanting to work on for practice today has something to do with hitting, and specifically it has to do with staying balanced when you're swinging. You've realized that you're a little off balance, especially when you have some off-speed pitches coming towards you, and that's really messing with your chances of getting hits during games. It doesn't matter if you're hitting in the batting cage. It doesn't matter if you guys are doing live hitting on the field. It doesn't matter if you're taking batting practice on the field. Any opportunity you get to practice your swing, you specifically can focus on being more balanced throughout your swing, right? It's about what your objective is for that day. So that would come in the form of your objective. So your goal for that day is to work on being more balanced. So maybe your objective is going to be you want to hold your follow through at the end of your swing to really focus and have the intent of, I need to be balanced, I need to be controlled throughout my swing. So for yourself, no matter what sport you play, once you've set that vision for practice, take it a step further and think, what's the objective that I really need to focus on? Something that's going to be actionable to help me achieve that success and achieve that vision that I've set for myself. And then step number 3 is actually going to take place after practice. And this is where you revisit your objectives and you revisit your vision. This is going to take the form of some sort of an evaluation practice. I really encourage you when you're doing this to write it down. Keep yourself some notes in your phone. It's probably even better if you keep yourself some notes in a notebook or a journal. But go back and write about what you worked on that day, what your goals were that day. And it's going to help actually even more if you set what your definition of success was for that day, if you really set that before practice by writing it down itself. And then go back and think, how was practice today? What did I focus on? Did I do that well? What do I want to keep working on? Because that's going to really help you then go to the next day of practice and carry forward. Okay, what do I want to work on from today's practice? How am I going to work on it tomorrow? And then that once again starts to become your vision and your definition of success for tomorrow's practice. So this becomes a really nice system of setting a very clear definition of success for practice. So you have that intent of what you want to work on, using the objectives to work on it actionably, and then after practice going back and revisiting it so that the next day you can continue this cycle so that you're making continuous improvement moving forward. Now, in terms of taking these skills and transferring them into game time execution, one of the key elements of that is actually going to be approaching games in a consistent mindset. So what I've done right here is I've linked another video that goes into detail about a pregame routine that you can use as an athlete to start games in the mindset that you want. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training.